You crazy mother. Yeah.
It's just Bernie.
Hey, Bernie, just like last week, huh?
Weekend at Bernie's.
All right, we are live, and we are joined by Myke Does, I believe you are a career electrician that has gotten into the over unity free energy topics and started designing and building some of your own.
Yeah, I mean, they're just basic systems. I don't know if they're over Unity or not. Haven't gotten that far, but they're definitely they're based off John Bedini's work, most of it, on his method with the capturing the flyback back into a battery. So I took that concept after replicating his systems, and I did some modifications and just made some more circuits using that concept of capturing the flyback, and I'll go over that.
Very
So,
nice.
yeah.
And
So my latest thing is here is also another DC pulse system. It's a bifilar system. I'll add it here. Actually here. So yeah, you can see this,
schematic.
play quickly. And it's just a DC pulse system, and so it's a double pole, double throw system on the switching. The major difference between what I'm doing and what John did, I don't know everything John did, but he was single pole switching, and I'm using a double pole switch as a main difference. But capturing the flyback, nonetheless, the same way he did with the high voltage diode. I'll go over the parts. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Circuit?
Yep.
So I'll go over the parts. I'll zoom out here real quick. This is just your battery. Do something here. Okay, yeah, here's your battery. So with the double pole switching, you're able to send the flyback back to a single battery. You don't really need two batteries if you do double pole switching. So here you have a magnet with two isolated contacts on there. You can see 1 and 2 in green. And here's the default state, and there's the switch to turn it on the right there. Right now it's off. So this is self-actuating system. You don't need a transistor or nothing to run this. It will run on its own. And how it does that, so when you close the switch and you go to here and switch is closed, you can see the coils turn red, right?
Yes, sir.
And when the coil gets energized, it'll create a north field right about there, a north magnetic field on this point of the core, and a south on this point of the core.
Okay, sorry, just gonna pause you for a second for
Gotcha.
the viewers, because we were discussing it before we went live, and you thought we were live. Just to add the details that it's a double bifilar coil system that you have here, and that you've wrapped the two bifilar coils together, where it's depicted that they're separate. They're actually wrapped in between each other in insulated wire. And then that is one ferrite rod that goes through both of them, not right there, yeah, that you highlighted, and not two separate rods. They're actually connected or centered as one with one core going through.
Yeah, so that's basically a bifilar, two wires wrapped together like so. And then a core in the middle. So these two mag wires, magnetic wires are wrapped together, twisted together, and then those two twistings are wrapped around a piece of iron. So I drew two rods here of iron, but it's actually just one piece of iron in the middle of of the two wires. So the bifathers are wrapped together, wrapped around a piece of iron. And I'll go over all these diodes one at a time, but let me just first go over the actuating part of how this circuit self switches. So it's a DC pulse system, and it's self-actuating. So what happens is when you have the switch open right now, right? So nothing's happening. You need to close that switch to send power to the bottom coil. And when you close the switch, you energize the bottom coil. Okay, switch is closed. And now the bottom coil is energized. So what you do is you create a north field here when you energize the coil, and a south field here. So don't pay attention to the south field. Right now, we're looking at the north field. And this orange magnet with the north face of that magnet facing the core that way. So the north field of that magnet is facing the iron core. And when you energize this, the bottom coil, it creates a north field here. So what happens, you have a standard magnet facing a electromagnet. So you have a standard north field of a standard magnet facing an electromagnet north. So they repel, right? They push away, right?
Absolutely.
So what happens when you energize it, it pushes the orange magnet away. And those two contacts are isolated, by the way. They're not, connected by any means. They're isolated, so there's no electrical connection between the two. And that's your double pole switching right there. That's your positive, and those two contacts are switching the plus and the minus from the battery to that
back and forth when the electromagnetic field is activated and pushing the north field of the solid magnets away, right. Back and forth. Yeah.
Right. And I'll show you how it pushes away there. You see how it pushed it away?
Yes, sir.
And now the circuit's disconnected. You see that as well. So we understand that this how this actuates by energizing the coil and pushing the contact away. And when that contact is pushed away, energy is removed from the coil here, right? And what happens? Well, when you take away the north field that used to be here, then this standard magnet will pull back to that piece of iron. Okay? Because it's just a piece of iron and a magnet. So they naturally it pulls back, right?
Naturally attracts to the ferrite. Makes sense. Right.
So then it just pulls back when you remove power. And by pushing it away, you give it power to push it away. And by pushing it away, you remove power. And by removing power, it pulls back. Okay?
Quite ingenious.
That's the self-actuating method here. So let me continue with this. Oh, by the way, this took me 12 hours straight to get this circuit, as far as I can tell, correct and operational. I'm going to go over the most important diode first. But let me go over the coils before I get there. So the bottom coil is the coil that's supposed to receive charge from the battery. And I'll trace the circuit and show you how that's being done. So the bottom coil is supposed to receive charge from the battery, okay? The top coil is not supposed to receive any charge from the battery. It receives it charge wirelessly from the bottom coil. Okay? It's just wireless induction from the bottom coil to the top. So this bottom coil gets induced with energy from the battery, and it wirelessly sends it up to the coil above. Okay? And when the top coil gets energized wirelessly by the coil below, it just gets energized. And then I'll show you what happens there once it gets energized, which is pretty interesting. And the diodes make this all happen. Okay, so the diodes are capturing the flyback back to the battery. via the double pole switching. Not only are they capturing the reverse flyback back to the battery, but the diodes are also capturing the forward charge to the upper coil alone. I believe just the upper coil. It's the diodes are sending the forward charge back to the battery. Now I'll go over that.
I see what you're saying. This is actually quite ingenious, Myke.
Let me trace the positive. So you see I got the plus and minus drawn out on the battery here, so you guys don't have to, you can see. Oh, did I do that backwards? My bad. I got to correct that. So let me just correct that. I got the plus and minus on the wrong side there. Plus is on the right. So here's your plus on the right. And the minus is on the left from the battery. And I'll trace out how the battery energizes the coil in a minute here. Give me a minute. Put the minus in there. Okay, so let me trace the plus now. You'll see the plus once this switch closes. Okay, in the default state, it's open, and then it closes, and this plus here will go this way. Give me a second here. Let me adjust the size of this. I guess I should put that in red. The plus. So the plus from the battery will go up here. And it'll go through the relay on the left side contact of the relay. You can see that. And it'll go up over this way. And it'll feed the bottom coil. Remember, the bottom coil is the only coil that gets charged from the battery. The top coil receives charge only wirelessly, not from the battery. It receives charge from the bottom coil wirelessly. It never receives charge from the battery. It's not supposed to. So there's how the plus gets to the right side of the coil. It heads over to the other end of the coil and channels to the minus like so. On the other side of the relay contact, on the right side, down to the minus of the battery. You can see that, right? Did you see that?
Yep.
Okay, so now we see how the relay charges the bottom coil. Now that we saw that, we can remove this. Okay. Okay, now that we saw how the bottom coil gets charged through the relay action, which is this on this orange magnet, we can deduce that the top coil is receiving wireless charge from the bottom coil at the same time. And now I'm going to show you how the top coil as a stator coil, we call a collector coil a stator coil. So let's call it a stator or collector coil. We'll see how the top coil, the collector coil, collecting wireless energy, funnels let me just say this, the forward charge. We're dealing with the forward charge. Now the flyback is the reverse charge to the battery. It's inverted. So we sent this positive here. Terrible handwriting. We sent this positive here, okay? We sent it over to here on this side of the coil. And we sent the negative here. Okay, so this is the forward charge. And we're doing the same thing to the top coil wirelessly, sending a positive here and a negative here. Now I'm going to show you how the forward charge from the top coil wirelessly induced from the bottom is going to send its wireless charge back to the battery. And it goes this way to the plus of the battery. And the minus goes this way to the minus of the battery. Okay, the diode is biased correctly for the minus.
And the whole
So,
purpose of the diode, absolutely.
Right. Let me just draw that again. So the top coil plus can channel through the diode this way, through the battery, and continue on this way through the battery to reach the other side of the top coil negative side. See, this is plus, leaving the diode outwards to the negative side of the coil. One more time, the plus came out this way, headed down through the diode, through the battery, up the battery, out this diode to the negative side of the top coil. And that's how the top coil is able to send the forward charge to the battery the second that it was induced wirelessly from the bottom coil. That's the forward charge, okay? Now the top coil, stator coil, is sending the forward charge to the battery and the flyback to the battery, sending both directional charges back to the battery. And not only is the top coil doing it, so the top coil is sending both directional charges back to the battery, and the bottom coil is only sending the flyback back to the battery. Now, the purpose of the top coil is to pick up the radiation coming off the bottom coil, which would otherwise be lost. So either you pick up that radiation from the bottom coil with a rotor and magnets, and you spin that rotor and harness that spin with some AC generator or whatever, or you can pick it up with a stator coil wirelessly. So with this, you could do both. You could use the stator coil above to pick up the wireless charge from the bottom coil, and as well, you can also spin a wheel at the same time. You can adjust the gauges on your coils however you want. This is just a concept model. You don't have to follow any number of turns here or gauges or anything. That's up to the user or the replicator. So you see how the top coil receives wireless charge and sends that forward charge back to the battery, okay? And then pay attention to this magnet, the double pole relay here, how it opens up, disconnects from the circuit, right? And now you see in green, the coils are green because they lost their charge, and now they're flying back in reverse polarity. So previously, we sent the positive here and the negative here on both coils, one from the battery and the other wirelessly, positive and negative. But now that they're green and they're disconnected from they're no longer being charged and they're losing their charge, they're going to flip polarity and fly back in opposite polarity. So now this has become a minus instead of a plus, and this becomes a plus instead of a minus. Okay? I have to draw this in here, otherwise it gets confusing. I have to show you the polarity flip here.
Absolutely. So it's flipping both polarities each time the circuit switches on and off.
When the switch opens and disconnects power from the source to the coil, the source is the battery, then it flies back in reverse polarity into the battery. Now, we went over these two diodes. Okay, we already discussed these. We eliminated those two diodes. That diode and this diode was handling the forward charge from the top coil, okay, back to the battery. We already discussed that. So those two diodes are understood now. Now we're going to look at the other two diodes that are handling. Now all these diodes are high voltage diodes. They're doubling as low voltage blocking diodes. In some circumstances, they handle blocking the battery voltage, and other circumstances they pass high voltage. So this diode that we went over is blocking the low voltage plus from going up, which is good because you don't want it to go up. You don't want this coil to receive charge from the battery at all. And yeah, so that's how it blocks low voltage and passes low voltage. Previously, when this was a plus, it was passing low voltage to the battery. But it's a minus now, and it's going to pass high voltage flyback, like so. Not through this diode, not through this diode, but the minus. Let's go with the plus flyback first. We'll go up this way. The high voltage flyback plus will come out. It can't get through that diode because of the biasing, but it can go this way around here to the plus of the battery through that other diode, which is biased correctly for high voltage in that direction. So now you see how the plus high voltage goes to the battery that way from the upper coil. And now you can see how the minus high voltage goes this way to the minus of the battery. It's okay if anyone's confused, because I was confused myself putting this together. It's very confusing. But there you have the flyback going back to the battery as well. And so that's the upper coil flying back into the battery. Now let's look at the bottom coil, how it flies back into the battery. With its plus right here on the left, it has to go through two diodes. Now I'll explain in a minute why there's two diodes on this channel. Okay? Bear with me. The flyback plus goes through here, down this way into the battery, plus. You see that? Right?
Yes, sir.
Stop me if you have any questions.
No, I see the double diodes going.
Facing right. You see that,
yep.
Right? Okay. So, and then, the plus can, channel through the battery, back up this way, and go this way, and go this way to the minus. And that's the other diode handling the minus of the flyback from the bottom coil. So there you see both coils are flying back into the battery, the bottom coil and the wireless induced stator coil. The flyback from both coils went back to the battery, and the forward charge from only one coil went back to the battery, and that's the top coil, the wireless pickup coil, which was picking up the field from the bottom coil. So in some level, there's visibly no loss here. In that aspect, the bottom coil did not lose its radiation to the air. Instead, it lost it to the upper coil. The upper coil picked up the radiation from the bottom coil and funneled it back to the battery. So in some level, you could see there's like very little loss going on here of power. Okay, so we got that. We got the forward charge. We got the flyback. And let me go over so we got all the diodes. Now, what we don't have understood is this one little diode here, which was the most important diode. And it took me a long time to figure out where to put this diode. And that's this diode here, this little diode here. It's a high voltage diode. And I'll explain why I put it there. I put it there because if that diode's not there, energy from the battery can funnel through the bottom coil and go through the top coil and charge it from the battery, which I don't want, because when you charge the top coil from the battery, you're creating a field in that coil at a moment where you don't want that coil to have any field, because you want that coil to be empty and ready to pick up wireless charge from the bottom coil. If you give power to the top coil from the battery at the same time you give power to the bottom coil, nothing's going to happen. The top coil is not going to be available to receive wireless charge because it already got charged from the battery directly. You see what I mean?
Absolutely. And sorry, I'm just gonna bring up Stefan G's question because he came in late and missed the explanation that what you're asking, Stefan, is actually how it is designed. The two bifilers are wrapped together coupled, and it is a single iron or ferrite core between the two wrapped coils together.
Yes, Stefan, it's a bifilar. The two coils are wrapped together. I just have it drawn like this for being able to trace the operation of the circuit clearly and visibly. But those two coils are wrapped together as a bifilar around a single iron core. And I drew two iron cores there just to eliminate confusion, which is hard to do. If I didn't draw a core in both coils, it would still be confusing. But to clear it up, there's only one core and two wires wrapped around each other, and those two wires are wrapped around that core, that single core. So there's only one core here. So yes, it's just one core, Stefan. And so that little diode there, okay, that little diode stops the battery power from reaching the stator coil above, the pickup coil. And I'm going to trace how it does that. Okay, so we're going to trace the positive and how it gets to the upper coil. Okay, so it goes this way. Okay, it goes here. Oh, let me go back to the other image actually. I'm going to trace how the battery ends up charging the top coil without that diode there, which you don't want that upper coil to receive any charge from the battery. You want that upper coil to be a pickup coil for wireless pickup only from the bottom coil, wireless pickup from the bottom coil. So the plus from the battery leaves here, and it continues on this way, heads down, goes up the left side of the double pole relay. Give me a second to draw this right. Goes up.
Mike, are you still there? If you are talking, we have lost your sound or your audio and your video. We cannot hear you. Can see you again. Cannot hear you though. Weird. We have lost Mike's audio. Can't hear you at all, brother. Drone strike? Hopefully not. Hopefully just a disconnection or a misconnection. We will get Mr. Myke does right back. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Oh, still nothing. Weird.
Can you hear me now? Oh, there you
now
go.
we can. Yep. Now there we go. Perfect.
All right. So we continue with that. Sorry. Technical difficulty. So the positive, you see how it's channeling through the left side of the contact, coming down here, right here to the right side of the drive coil. Okay, and it goes through the coil. And let me remember this correctly. All right. Okay. Yeah. Goes through the coil. And I believe it can. No, was it there? I'm trying to remember this. Oh, okay, yeah. It goes through the coil and it comes this way, right? And of course, it heads on the right side of contact down to negative, right? But this is a positive from the battery reaching this point, right? And that positive that reached that point from the battery, same positive from the battery right here, has reached over here. And it reached there through the bottom coil. So the bottom coil is limiting some current, but still current is reaching that point there on the left. And that positive, is that what it was? Bear with me. This is confusing. So that positive, where is it?
Feeds into the negative side, completing the circuit, right?
There it is. Okay, it goes this way. See? You see the red?
Yes, sir.
And it goes this way through this diode, through the coil, the upper coil, which you don't want. And it goes up here, down, and it comes over to here, and there's that little diode. You see the diode now? And
Yes,
right
sir.
there, that diode is blocking that positive from reaching negative.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
Because if that diode's not there, the positive goes up to the left and down the negative rail of the double pole relay, which is the right side, and hits negative right here. Negative. So let me do that one more time. This is a confusing part, but it's understandable to some degree. So the positive, we know that this positive ends up right here. Okay? We already established that. And, it goes all the way around, and yada, yada, yada. And it goes through the coil. It goes up here, goes to the right side of the relay down to negative, and it ends up right there, positive. Okay, the positive from the battery ends up right here. And it reaches the negative to charge this coil. But after that coil is charged, nonetheless, this positive is still sitting there. Okay? And whatever energy is left that the bottom coil did not use will continue on this way up this diode through the upper coil out here above this diode over here. And if this little diode is not there, it will go up around this way back to negative and charge the upper coil from the battery after passing the plus from the battery through the bottom coil. It will go through the upper coil only if it's not blocked by that diode. But the diode's there, so that's not going to happen. And this upper coil will not receive charge from the battery, which is good news because you don't want the pickup coil to be charged by the battery. You want it to be charged wirelessly from the bottom coil. And only that way. That's the only way you want that top coil to receive charge. Reason being, if the upper coil receives some small amount of charge from the battery, while the bottom coil is being radiated with energy, the radiation coming off this bottom coil will have trouble getting in to this upper coil. Why? Because the upper coil already got some radiation from the battery. You want the upper coil to be completely empty. You don't want it to have any kind of charge. So that's why that diode's there. This little diode's there to block the battery energy from passing the bottom coil and channeling through the upper stator coil.
Makes sense.
Granted, it would only receive a small amount of charge, But that small amount of charge reaching the upper coil will still impede the wireless charge from the bottom coil to the upper coil. It will impede. It will be a loss, basically. You'll just be blocking. Let's say 10 milliamps is reaching the upper coil, while the bottom coil gets 100 milliamps because it's first in line, and the upper coil is in series, with the bottom coil. The only thing taking out of series is that diode. So let's say 100 milliamps hits the bottom coil, and after the 100 milliamps passes through the bottom coil, the battery has 10 amps, so it has more than 100 milliamps. So it can send, power after the bottom coil to the upper coil. Assuming that diode's not there, it can do that, but the diode's there blocking, so it can't. So the upper coil is now being blocked by that diode from receiving any charge from the battery, making it a full wireless pickup coil. And so if you put 10 milliamps into that upper coil from the battery, that's 10 milliamps that you're going to use to block the field coming off the bottom coil into the upper coil. So 10 milliamps is lost. Not only 10 milliamps, but 20 milliamps, because you're using 10 milliamps of magnetic field to block 10 milliamps of another magnetic field trying to get in.
Absolutely.
Okay? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's why that diode's there. That diode was key to this
Isolating the pickup coil.
Exactly. To isolate the pickup coil from receiving any charge at all from the battery. The pickup coil is only supposed to receive charge from the bottom coil. So yeah, it's a little confusing, but it'll make sense.
Oh, it's fully making sense. This is awesome, Myke.
It is? Okay, that's good news. Anybody any questions there? So yeah, it's basically a DC pulse system and double pole switching. And by double pole switching, let me go over that. Here you see the switch is open. So we'll see now that with the switch open, this part of the circuit's disconnected, and so is this, right? From anything. It's just disconnected. When it's open like that, and now you see the coils are flying back in green. Where was the positive again? It goes around, over here. So the positive was here before from the battery, and the negative was here. And then it's flying back in green in reverse polarity. So now it's a negative here, a positive here. With the switch open, when the switch is open and it's flying back, that's good news because when the switch is open, any flyback coming off the bottom coil or the top coil. So you can see the top coil plus and minus. You can see the plus flyback going this way. And if it were to go this way, and if it were to go up, it would go into thin air, go nowhere because the switch is open. So that's the benefit of double pole switching. You're able to send the power you want where you want it. So the flyback, instead of going up the switch because the switch is open and it can't go anywhere, it goes the other way. It goes to the battery. If it were to go up, it would go nowhere because the switch is open. So the negative portion would go this way to the negative of the battery. And if it were to go up, it would go nowhere because the switch is open. And that's the benefit of double pole switching. You're able to send the power back to a single battery, the flyback, when you double pole switch. With Bedini, he had a single pole switching. So he had two batteries sending, charging one coil with one battery, and that coil would invert polarity and send power to the other battery. When you double pole switch, you don't need two batteries. You can do it with one battery. in one coil. So this stator coil, you could put more than one stator coil. You could put 100. You can wrap 100 pickup coils here if you wanted to, you know, and tie it into this
Tests need
circuit.
to be done for sure to see how much of a super efficiency you get, and if you're able to actually achieve over unity through it and
What's
self-charging, right?
Well, yeah, going to what you're saying there, what I find unique about this method of being able to send the forward charge and the flyback, the reverse flyback charge back to the battery through the stator pickup coil. So the forward charge will go, because you know the plus is here and the minus is here on the forward charge. So the forward charge would go to the battery this way, and the minus would go to the battery this way. Well, that's interesting because, well, that's standard actually. That's a standard method of rectifying a stator coil to a storage device. But what's unique about this is the stator coil is not only sending the standard in the standard ways. It's not only sending the induced field into it to the battery, and it's also sending the reverse field, the reverse flyback, to the same battery on the off cycle, which is here when it's off, when the switch is open. Okay, before the switch was closed, and this is the forward charge getting to the battery. And then the switch opens, and the reverse charge also, the reverse polarity charge also gets to the battery through another set of diodes, which is this diode here to the negative, and this diode here to the positive. That's what's different about this. So this stator coil is not acting traditional. Traditionally, stator coils will just pick up a forward EMF and rectify it to a storage device, a battery, whatever, which we're doing that here also. But we're also sending the flyback in addition to the forward charge. That's what's different about this system, and which makes it more efficient, in my opinion, than a standard
Oh, absolutely.
setup, you know.
Undeniable. You're like at least probably doubling or adding an extra dimension of efficiency and energy reintroduction into it, right?
Yeah.
Combining two effects.
Right. Standard is traditionally they just, you send a magnetic field into a coil and you rectify it, that forward magnetic field, to a coil, you rectify it to a battery. And here we're doing that, but we're also sending the reverse flyback field to the same battery with an extra set of diodes. And you can see that here. There's two diodes facing in two directions, one for the forward charge and one for the reverse. You also have two diodes here in two directions for the plus side. So this diode handles the negative. Sorry, I got confused again. Yeah. Those two diodes on the left are one is handling the negative, and the other one, that's the flyback negative reverse charge, and this is the positive forward charge. So the two diodes are facing opposite directions, one for the forward charge and one for the reverse charge, which is the flyback, just like these two in opposite directions for both directional charges. Yeah.
Makes sense. crucial parts of the engineering.
So yeah, I think this is a much more efficient. I don't know if it's over Unity, but I haven't built it yet. But I definitely built the schematic and demonstrated through the schematic that. Hi, Jessica. I demonstrated through the schematic that through the schematic you can see that there is it's pretty much operational the way it should. You could see it should operate the way it's drawn out, which is pretty important to draw these things out and go over them, because you could just try to build stuff without drawing it out, and it could be a headache. This was a headache right here just to get this circuit right. So imagine trying to build this without drawing it out. First you probably spend a hell of a lot more time getting it right. If I didn't draw this out first, I'm pretty sure what would have happened was I would not have put that diode there, and I would end up losing power. As I discussed, that what that diode does, it blocks the battery from feeding the upper coil, which you don't want. You don't want any energy from the battery going into the pickup coil. So getting to the over unity part and the experiments with over unity, if anybody wants to do over unity experiments with this circuit, the way I see experiments going on with this circuit in regards to over unity is with the stator coil primarily, the upper coil. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, because you're sending both the forward and the reverse charge back to the battery. Well, I don't know of any system that does that with a stator coil other than this one so far. So if you are to use this to do that, to send the forward and the reverse charge back to the battery, you can experiment with different frequencies, and perhaps at different frequencies you would able to pick up, exogenous signals or sine waves from the environment and rectify them into the stator coil along with your wireless pickup from the bottom coil. So as the bottom coil is radiating its field into the top coil, that radiation transmission to the top coil, you may be able to pick up extra, signals from the environment with that transmission to the top coil, if you get what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Like an antenna,
Yeah.
Think of it as an antenna. So as you're sending the EMF from the bottom coil to the top, perhaps at different frequencies, you can capture extra signals from the environment along the way with your field. You see what I'm saying?
For instance, like if you include or have it going at the Schumann resonance, then you might be able to pick up some of the Schumann frequency energy, right?
Right.
Or like a radio
or anything
station
cosmic or whatever,
frequency.
wherever it comes from, So let's say in red is the your field from the battery, your EMF field, and you experiment at different frequencies, and you're able to pick up in green exogenous. Well, it wouldn't come from there actually. The green portion, exogenous or outside fields, would probably be received somewhere around here. Okay, in green is the
in the wireless component.
Because you're pushing your EMF to the other coil, and the other coil's receiving it like an antenna. So your red is your energy from the battery, and the green is exogenous signals from the environment heading in the same direction. Okay?
Gotcha.
That's my viewpoint on this. So I mean, for now, I'm just going to say this is an efficient way of driving a rotor, or just converting DC to AC, because as you're sending power to the top coil, at this point it's before these diodes. Let me get this correct. This is the forward Forward rectifying diode. So before these diodes, at this point on the line, it's AC. It's not DC yet, okay? Once you get past this diode here on the line, then it's DC. So at this point, you know, on the line, you have AC. Okay? So you can use this as a DC to AC converter or invert DC to AC like so. And at the same time, whatever AC you don't use at this point on the line, anywhere on these points on the line before these diodes is AC. So you could tap off the upper coil for AC at those points. And whatever AC you don't draw off that upper coil, whatever's left over will go to the battery. You see? Very
I
efficient.
do get what you're saying. That's actually huge, and one of the biggest inefficiencies in current electrical engineering is the AC DC rectifying, right? Like the transition.
You know, this rectifies the upper coil AC to a DC with the diodes. But like I said, you could tap off before the diode. You could tap into the coil before the diodes and still draw AC off of it. If that battery below is charged, fully charged, it's not going to be able to receive any power from the upper coil. So it'll be available to be, you know, to draw off the coil however you want. You could draw off the coil here DC. If you want to use DC from the coil, it'll be a higher voltage DC probably because you're pulsing. And it won't be 12 volts from the battery DC. It'll probably be a higher voltage than that. So you can just, you know, buck boost the DC from the battery to a higher voltage and use a higher voltage DC after the diode. Or you could tap off at this point AC and use AC off the stator coil. And whatever you don't draw off the coil as AC can be used to drive a wheel, because you could put a rotor here with magnets on both sides of this coil to spin two wheels if you want. And those wheels can generate more power. So if there's any loss, it's from the core, out the core. But because you have a pickup coil here, it's picking up most of that radiation. And if it doesn't pick up most of it, you can add more pickup windings until you do pick up all the radiation that is coming off the bottom coil.
I see what you're saying. I like this.
Yeah, I have a way of making sense of things when it comes to efficiency on things, you know.
Absolutely. Crucial part of all electrical engineering that's been missing in a lot of places, and it's whether it's intentional or not, either way, love that you figured a lot of it out here.
I mean, a lot of it's already figured out. It's just what I got going on is the diodes is a big part of figuring things out. Without those diodes in the right place, it just wouldn't work right. You'd have loss and things like that. So I figured out most of the problems of loss of power with those diodes. That's what I did there. So, and you know, the double pole switching is also a big part of figuring things out on how to use. We just use one battery instead of two, you know.
And is that also what gives you the AC, correct? The double switch?
The double pole switching, what it does is it makes it so you don't need, with the Bedini SG, you need two batteries and a single coil, and you need to send energy from one battery into that coil and have that coil fly back into the other battery in reverse polarity. So with the double, that's with single pole switching. But when you double pole switch, you can wire it up in a way that you can send it back to one battery. You can have one battery charge a coil, and that same battery receive the flyback. So I've created many mods of double pole switching mods. I have a modification with 2 batteries and 2 coils, which the advantage to that, it gives you it gives each battery more time to receive charge between the loading cycle. But I don't know if that's such a big deal. I kind of like the single battery method.
For sure, definitely more efficient. So, what's giving the AC conversion aspect then from the bottom DC battery circuit,
What's converting the AC to DC?
or the DC to AC? What? Because the battery is DC, right?
Yeah. And your question is, what's converting the DC to AC?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, it's being pulsed. So until you rectify the, so how do I put this? The radiation going from the bottom coil to the top is, I don't think it's DC. I mean, it's just a dipole radiation with a north and a south.
Okay, okay.
And I mean, if you were to look at it this way, when you send magnets, you pass 2 magnets over hold on. So you would let me draw this out real quick. To get AC over, let's say this is a coil, right? And you place 2 magnets over the arms of the coil. You place one magnet here and another magnet on the other arm. And the magnet has to pass over the 2 arms of the coil. So the green is let's say the green is south and the blue is north. And the south and north will pass over the arms of the coil. And then by doing that, you create AC by passing the north and south over the arms of the coil. So in the same way, you're doing the same thing. You're passing north and south over the coil here. You're not passing north and south. You're radiating north and south. So it's not a moving field,
Well, but it is because the connection back and forth turning on, and then the reverse polarity happening.
Yeah, let's say north is your, plus or whatever, and south is your minus. And that's what's happening. You're radiating north and south over that coil. And, if it's not, it could be DC. I'm not sure. I haven't put an oscilloscope to it. I mean, but I have a feeling it's
what I'm
AC.
suspecting is that you actually do get AC out of it because of the reverse polarity that happens when it disconnects and comes back.
True, yeah.
So then it's like it's going back and forth, which that's switching the fields back and forth.
That's a good point.
Back and forth. That's what would actually convert and give you the AC out of it.
That's true. Yes, it would be a form of AC. So the DC spike is a type of AC anyway. It does operate AC devices, certain AC devices, because it is, the spike is like it's like that, That's the DC spike, and this is an AC wave. So you kind of have the same thing going on here. So that's how it's able to operate AC devices. It's sort of an AC signal. The DC spike is, I mean, it's not a DC signal 100%, is what I'm saying. They call it a spike or a high voltage spike, but it has a top portion and a bottom portion, just like AC does, and that's why it runs AC devices. But like you said a second ago, I mean, when you give plus here and minus here, and then it flips polarity, and that again right there, that's AC. The flipping of the polarity is also AC. So that's
Exactly, right? So this really needs to be tested, Myke, because you might have created a super efficient DC AC converter with this system here.
yeah. I mean, it won't be a pure AC wave coming off of here because you're DC pulsing and all that, and you're not actually passing a north and south magnet over a coil per se. Like that produces a perfect AC sine wave, like so. When you pass north and south over the arms of the coil, that's what that produces.
Well, that's what would be happening in the ferrite core as the polarity switch back and forth, and the energy is going pulsing back and forth the directions. No,
it's an AC signal, but different waveform.
I got you. Let's see. Very
It's
interesting.
It's not a pure waveform like the bottom one. It's more like this one, But the top portion is the one that's usually utilized in this spike for DC applications. But people have run AC devices with the DC spike because there is a negative portion and a positive portion in the spike.
That you're utilizing both of them in it.
Well, that's what enables it to run AC devices. It has a plus and a minus. If it was just a spike like this, then it would only run DC. But you have this usually in a spike. It's more like that. So you have a little bit of negative there. And some spikes, depending on the coil that's being pulsed, will come out different. It won't, it depends on your coil. I've seen those rodent coils produce a spike like this with a larger negative portion and a smaller positive, which is more negative energy, I guess. There's a lot of experimenting needing to be done here, but definitely, there is an AC type of signal coming off this stator coil. It's not a pure AC like you would have in a standard AC generator or whatever, but it's close, and it will run AC devices, and you can tap off these 2 points before the diodes to run AC devices, and you can tap off of this point to run DC devices after the diode, because the diode will rectify the spike into a DC. I'm not sure what that will look like without an oscilloscope, but it will rectify this spike. The diodes will rectify the spike and make it probably look more like I'm not sure, maybe more like that or something, or this. It won't be plus and minus. It'll be either plus or minus, but not both. Once it passes the diode, that's what the rectification does. The diodes handle the rectifying of the AC signal. So in the standard Bedini circuit, he rectifies the high voltage spike with a high voltage diode. And not only does he use that diode to rectify, but he uses it to make sure that the spike doesn't go back the other way, and it goes to the battery and stays in the battery. So the diode kind of like makes sure the power goes one way and not back the other. Because if it goes back the other, then the battery will not get charged. You need it to go one way to the battery and stay in the battery. That's why the diode's there. Excuse me.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, this is really good work, Myke.
I will replicate it and get it working and get an oscilloscope on it. Everyone will be able to see the signal eventually. I have to put a lab together and a table and all that, and hopefully that'll happen this summer.
I hope so too, because I would love to see this in action and start seeing different tests on it. Because in theory, it's genius.
All the other mods I did don't have a stator pickup coil on them. They're just they just have drive coils. The only difference in this circuit is it has a pickup coil, which I think it's a lot more useful having a pickup coil. The idea came to me. I was talking with Brandon from Over Unity Research. He was talking to me about coil shorting, and originally I was going to put another. You see the magnet here with the relay. I was going to put another relay magnet and all with a single contact instead of two on this upper coil to handle the coil shorting thing. And instead, I decided to just go with a diode straight to the battery. It was just really complicated, so it was easier to just do it with a diode and short the stator statically to the battery. Because when you think about it, when the upper coil is induced, it's induced with a pulse, so it's induced and removed charge. So it's still, you don't really need to short the coil because of that factor right there, Yeah, but coil shorting is an interesting technique. It's basically when you pass a magnet past the coil, right as the magnet passes the coil, you short the coil out to the battery at that moment and then open it again. It's very interesting. And it sends a high voltage spike to the battery. It's a cool little process. Well, that's all I have today on this one. I know there's a lot of confusion out there on this, but nonetheless,
I think you explained it pretty well.
I hope so.
Oh, I fully get what you're saying, and the chat does as well. And this is
once again, that little diode there is to block the battery source power from reaching the upper coil. After the source power passes through the bottom coil, it can funnel through the circuit to the upper coil if that diode's not there. And so people are like wondering, why do you have two diodes in series to the battery plus? And that's why. Yeah. Ideally, you would only want one, but you need two in this case. Otherwise, the battery power will reach the top coil. And that energy reaching the top coil will block the EMF coming off the bottom coil.
It will literally cancel all of the effects that you've
not all
engineered into this. Well, majority of the effects.
Some of it.
Yeah. Okay.
And that would be loss. So some loss. You don't want any loss if you can avoid it. Better to put that diode there than to not put it there.
Absolutely. Oh, it's all about engineering super efficiency, and that with like how things are made today so inefficiently with it that it can appear as over unity, possibly even, or free energy, but really it's just making the system more exponentially more efficient than they currently are, with all of the ridiculous loss that happens within the current engineering and designs.
I'm sure there's engineers out there looking at this and seeing what I'm talking about, and you know, it's good to send the forward charge and the reverse charge through the stator coil back to the battery if you can, and this system does that. So the top stator pickup coil will send the forward charge from the battery, not from the battery, from the wireless pickup from the bottom coil. Whatever transmission comes off the bottom coil to the top coil in forward transmission will go back to the battery. And when the top coil flies back, it will fly back to the battery, and so will the bottom coil fly back to the battery. The bottom coil's forward charge does not go back to the battery. It goes to the top coil. So in that sense, you're not just, inducing the bottom coil and radiating it into the air and doing nothing with it. You're sending it to another coil and recapturing it. I don't know what use that has. It's good for experiments, I'll tell you that.
100%. And like you said, potentially driving rotors, and it's all about just engineering more aspects of the energy use and transfers within a system, and trying to capture more radiant energy and put it in as well, right?
Right. The radiant energy would be the flyback, and the forward energy is the energy coming from the battery, which also transmits through the bottom coil to the top coil back to the battery, which I think is interesting.
I think it's ingenious, my friends. And on that note, I'm sorry I have to run off and cut this a little bit short, but I think you did an absolutely awesome presentation and explanation here. And we'll have to follow up and do another episode again on this and a little bit more. And I've got some other questions on a couple other devices that I would love your input on, my friend.
Yes, sir. Hope you guys enjoyed that. And have a great evening.
You as well, brother. Much love.
Take care, man.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You crazy mother. Yeah.
It's just burning.